In a world often painted in muted shades of conformity, Madison was a splash of vibrant, unapologetic color. Her name was whispered in circles of influence, a modern myth wrapped in designer clothes. It wasn't just her appearance, the cascade of emerald green hair or the perfect bow of her pink lips that captured attention. It was the aura of absolute self-possession she radiated, a quiet confidence that bordered on unnerving. She moved through life not as a participant, but as a conductor orchestrating a symphony only she could hear. People were drawn to her, mesmerized by a charisma that felt both enchanting and predatory. They saw a beautiful, intriguing woman, but they were oblivious to the true nature of her allure, the terrifying secret she held coiled and ready right at her fingertips. Madison possessed a power as simple as it was absolute. With a single, crisp snap of her fingers, the world of the person before her would fracture and reform around a new center. Her. The sound itself was unremarkable, easily lost in the noise of a bustling street or a crowded room. But its effect was instantaneous and total. The target's will would simply evaporate, their consciousness submerged. The only outward sign of this mental coup was in their eyes. The pupils would flood with a luminous green, a telltale sign that they were no longer their own. They became puppets, their strings held invisibly in Madison's hand. A second snap, and the connection was severed. The victim would stumble back to themselves with a gap in their memory and a faint, lingering headache, never knowing they had been a pawn in her game. This temporary control was her plaything, a tool for smoothing over life's minor inconveniences. But for situations that required a more lasting solution, Madison had a more profound, more terrifying method. For permanent control, the ritual was slightly different. Immediately after the initial snap, while the victim was still suspended in that moment of psychic vulnerability, she would need to make physical contact, a gentle touch to their forehead. It wasn't a violent act, but a quiet transfer of power, a final, irreversible seal. From that moment on, the person was hers forever. They weren't mindless zombies. In fact, they were far more useful. They retained their skills, their memories, their personalities, but their core allegiance, their very reason for being, was rewritten to be one of unwavering loyalty to Madison. They became her devoted courtiers in a silent, ever-expanding kingdom. And her kingdom was lavish. She lived a life of curated luxury, a fortress of wealth built by the hands of the enthralled. Her penthouse overlooked the city she was quietly conquering, its walls adorned with art gifted from private collections. Her meals were prepared by chefs stolen from Michelin-starred restaurants, and her finances were managed by Wall Street prodigies who now saw her portfolio as their life's work. She never had to ask for anything. Her needs were anticipated, her desires met before she even fully formed them. Surrounded by these adoring manufactured faces, she was the absolute center of her universe. Yet, in the quiet moments, looking out over the sprawling city lights, a new feeling began to stir within her. The thrill of acquisition was fading, replaced by the familiar pang of boredom. The city was her dollhouse, but she was growing tired of her toys. Madison was beginning to wonder what lay beyond the limits of her gilded cage, and what a power like hers could truly achieve on a global stage. She once had a bottle of juice in her hand and needed to pull a door. She saw a person passing by and snapped her fingers. And the person opened the door and bowed. He carried her handbag until she drank her juice. She then snapped her fingers again. The world was a chaotic, inefficient place, and Madison craved order. She envisioned an existence where every detail was perfectly curated, but she knew she couldn't achieve it alone. She required assistance, not from partners, but from extensions of her own will. She didn't just want help, she craved a perfectly synchronized entourage. The idea took root. She would acquire a small retinue of servants, girls to help her manage the grand tapestry of her ambitions. From her vantage point, she scanned the crowds. She wasn't looking for just anyone. She needed a specific blend of beauty, intelligence, and underlying strength. Then, she saw 3 beautiful girls pass by. One, with a sharp bob and confident stride, was clearly a leader. Another, with flowing hair and an artistic flair, laughed freely. The third, poised and elegant, carried a leather portfolio. They were perfect. Unpolished gems ready to be cut and set to her specifications. A slow, predatory smile touched Madison's lips as she descended, intercepting their path with a magnetic presence that stopped them in their tracks. "A moment of your time," she said, her voice a low, hypnotic melody. Before they could answer, she snapped her fingers. One by one, she reached out and touched their foreheads. A jolt passed through them as their vibrant life dimmed for a split second, their eyes refocusing with a new, unwavering loyalty. They were hers now. The confusion vanished, replaced by a serene, unquestioning loyalty. Their individual wills were submerged, harmonized into a single purpose, serving Madison. Within the hour, their old lives were shed. They re-emerged, transformed. They were her little assistants, wearing striking red suits and dark sunglasses. No longer three women, but a single, efficient unit. Her shadows, extensions of her will, ready to execute any command. To test their new synchronicity, Madison took them to the coast. At the beach, they moved with an eerie, balletic precision. When Madison decided to swim, they followed without a word. Shedding their suits for identical black bikinis, they entered the cool ocean water. They all wore a bikini and swam with Madison, moving around her in a perfect protective formation. Madison floated on her back, a deep sense of satisfaction washing over her. This was just the beginning. Her world was finally starting to look perfect. Madison's appetite for luxury had become an insatiable force. The thrill of acquiring things had dulled. She now craved infrastructure. She needed to own the very systems that created and maintained the opulence she consumed. A new, audacious plan formed, one that would escalate her power from simple acquisition to absolute dominion. Her gaze fell upon the world of hyper-exclusive automobiles, a realm of precision engineering and astronomical price. It was the perfect next stage for her empire. She arrived at the most prestigious Bugatti dealership in the region, a glass and steel temple to automotive perfection. The dealership manager, a man named Julian, approached with a condescending smile, sizing up her youthful appearance and dismissing her as a tourist. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone dripping with a politeness that was anything but. Madison met his gaze, a flicker of amusement in her eyes. This was the friction she needed. With a deliberate, elegant motion, she raised her hand and snapped her fingers. The sound was crisp and final. An invisible wave of energy pulsed through the showroom. Julian froze, his smirk melting into a placid, vacant expression. Across the dealership, every employee stopped, turned their head in unison, and fixed their gaze on Madison. Their will was no longer their own. This was a calculated strategic move. Madison tapped her temple, her mind already processing the logistics. For the maintenance of her cars, she needed the world's best mechanics, a direct line for parts, and a secure facility. This was needed. By taking the dealership, she acquired it all in a single act. This was about owning the entire ecosystem. Julian approached, his posture now one of complete subservience. "Mistress," he said, his voice flat, "the dealership and all its assets are yours. How may we serve you?" "Prepare the entire current inventory," she commanded, her voice calm and clear. She walked the showroom floor, curating a statement. She selected a purple, silver, and pink and orange Bugatti, a vibrant purple Chiron for royalty, a hot pink Devo for audacity, and a fiery orange Centodieci for raw power. She took them all. For herself, she chose the sleek silver Chiron Supersport. She slid into the driver's seat as her top lieutenants, the girls of her inner circle, were assigned the other vehicles. She drove the silver one. At her silent command, 4 W16 engines roared to life in perfect, deafening synchrony. She led her new convoy onto the open road. Behind her, the girls drove the other cars, a vibrant procession of automotive art following in perfect formation, a testament to her absolute control. This was the new definition of luxury. It wasn't about buying things, it was about taking worlds. They lived a life of luxury, escalated to a life of legend. Madison went to bars. And made new men under her control and slept with them, and after one day she released them. She found a millionaire and slept with him, took everything from except his business, him his jets, his money. She went to a bank with her girls and permanently got the entire staff hers and went to the bank whenever she needed money. With the jets' money and her girls, she ruled the world. She hypnotized him, married the Prince of Denmark and ruled the kingdom. Soon with her girls, she got the other world leaders under her control. She ruled the world with her girls. They were inseparable.